The Outermost House, A Year of Life on the Great Beach of Cape Cod, by Henry Beston. Chapter 3, The Headlong Wave, Section 3. I will close my chapter with a few paragraphs about heavy surf. It is best to be seen, I think, when the wind is not too high. A gale blows up a surf, but it also flattens out the incoming rollers, making monstrous, foamy traveling mounds of them, much like those visible from a ship at sea. Not until the wind has dropped do the breakers gather form. The finest surf I have ever seen here. It was a northern recoil of the great Florida hurricane, broke on 3 pleasant and almost windless autumn days. The storm itself had passed us, but our seas had been stirred to their deeps. Returning to the Cape at night from a trip to town, I heard the roar of the ocean in Orleans, and on arriving at Nauset, found the beach flooded to the dunes and covered with a churn of surf and moonlight. Dragging a heavy suitcase and clad in my go-to-town clothes, I had an evil time getting to the forecastle over the dune tops and along the flooded marsh. Many forces mingle in the surf of a storm. The great earth rhythm of the waves, the violence of wind, the struggle of water to obey its own elemental law. Out of the storm at sea come the giants, and being giants, trip far out, spilling first on the outer bar. Shoreward, then they rush, breaking all the way. Touching the beach, they tumble in a roar lost in a general noise of storm. Trampled by the wind and everlastingly moved and lifted up and flung down by the incoming seas, the water offshore becomes a furious glassiness of marbly foam. Wild, rushing sheets of sea 50 feet wide border it. The water streams with sand. Under all this move furious tidal currents, the longshore undertow of outer Cape Cod. Shore currents here move in a southerly direction. Old wreckage and driftwood is forever being carried down here from the north. Coast Guard friends often look at a box or stick I have retrieved and say, "Saw that 2 weeks ago up by the light." After an easterly, I find things on the beach which have been blown down from the Gulf of Maine. Young, uprooted spruce trees, lobster buoys from Martinikas, and after one storm, a great strewing of empty sea urchin shells. Another easterly washed up a strewing of curious wooden pebbles shaped by the sea out of the ancient submerged forests which lie just off the present coast. They were brown-black, shaped like beach stones, and as smooth as such stones. The last creature I found in the surf was a huge horseshoe crab, the only one I have ever chanced to find on the outside. The surf having turned him upside down, he had, as usual, doubled up, and the surf had then filled with sand the angle of his doubling. When I discovered him, he was being bullied by a foam slide, and altogether in a desperate way. So I picked him up, rinsed and sand out of his waving gills, held him up all dripping by the tail, and flung him as far as I could to seaward of the breakers. A tiny splash, and I had seen the last of him. A moment more, and the surf had filled the hollow in which he had lain. Autumnal easterlies and November tides having scoured from the beach its summer deeps of sand, The high seasonal tides now run clear across to the very foot of the dunes. Under this daily overflow of cold, the last of the tide rim hoppers and foragers vanish from the beach. An icy wind blusters. I hear a dry tinkle of sand against my western wall. December nears, and winter closes in upon the coast.